Welcome. Welcome wherever you may be around the globe, this evening, tonight, or this morning. Welcome to this celebration of life for Randie Lind. I would ask you to please mute if you have it on and stay muted until we go into the reception. I would also encourage you to put your Zoom into speaker view so that you have the full experience of what we can offer in our virtual world. It is so good to be together, and we gather with hearts heavy with grief and sorrow at Randie's loss, yet also with gratitude for having had her in our lives and sharing with her, appreciating that she is now beyond suffering, and grateful that she knew how much she was loved. Those gathered this evening were blessed to know her. She touched lives and was touched by others. It is no easy thing to say farewell to a loved one, and Randie was certainly loved. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Reverend Deborah Falk, honored to serve Calgary Unitarians, Randie and Jeff's spiritual home. It is our tradition at the beginning of a service to light a chalice, a candle, symbol of that divine spark within each of us and the warmth offered each other when we gather. This evening, the chalice table is in Jeff and Randie's home, amidst precious items gathered in her honor and at her request. I offer these words and then invite Jeff to light the candle. A candle needs another flame to light it. It burns brightly for a time, then dies, but before its own end comes, it may kindle others. Each person's life is a candle that can give light to the world and help to kindle other people's lives. We light our chalice flame in grateful remembrance of one who, having given her light to the world, now rests in death, in acknowledgement of the great gift which she has passed to us, and in hope that, in turn, we may pass on that gift to the generations who will come after us. And Jeff will light the chalice. As we have planned this evening, the image or metaphor of cycling and bicycles came to mind. How could it be otherwise? Randie, in fact, wrote a poem, Life is a Bicycle. She wrote, "Life is a bicycle, bicycle, two wheels, wheels within wheels, dreams within schemes within dreams, spinning out, cycle and recycle, hope springs eternal. Change gears, get in gear, change and changes. Ah, life, easy riding, freewheeling, high flying, free fall, crash landing. Pick up the pieces, tighten connections, pathways and passages, rites of passage. Don't panic. Keep the rhythm. Keep the faith. Balance. Even cadence. Clean the chain. Check the brakes. Chains, break free. New links, only connect. Watch the signs, up, down, beginning, end, hard traveling, easy riding, balance against the wind, head down, hold on, keep moving. So let us keep moving on this cycling tour. The next stop, the garden. Randie loved her garden, a reminder to her of summers growing up on her parents' farm near Nanton. This summer, her dear friend Sandra filled the flower boxes, and Jeff worked to live up to Randie's dedication to planting, nurturing, and keeping the garden going, not even knowing whether she would ever see it again. Miraculously, after walking out of Dulcina Hospice in June, Randie had 3 months of backyard relaxing and distant visits. I feel so fortunate to have been one of those visitors and to have enjoyed both the company and the beauty. Randie was an integral part of planning this service, including selecting the presenters, readings, and much of the music, like this one, Inch by Inch, a garden song sung in our congregation. And I invite you to please sing along if you are so inclined, as our director of music, Jane Perry, leads us in this song that Randie loved, Inch by Inch.
Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds and picking stones, man is made of dreams and bones. Feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Grain for grain, sun and rain, find my way in nature's chain. Tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Plant your rows straight and long, temper them with prayer and song. Mother Earth will make you strong if you give her love and care. Old crow watching hungrily from his perch in yonder tree. In my garden I'm as free as that feathered thief up there. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down.
Can't you just imagine Randie singing that song? I can almost see her. And so we continue with the metaphor of a bicycle trip, but we start, of course, with tricycles. And the tricycle days, those earliest years of Randie's life, are best shared by one who shared them with her, her cousin Ina. And then her dear friend Sandra Vida offers the No More Training Wheels section about her university days. Ina and Sandra?
I'm Randy's cousin Ina. We're the same age, and our farms were less than 2 miles apart. There were many more cousins and neighbors close by. We all grew up together. Randie and I often talked about how lucky we were to have lived where and when we did. Even when we were very young, Randie had a wonderful imagination, and her favorite words were, Let's pretend that. We staged many plays on a window seat in her parents' room. We rode her glider swing to places far away. We crawled through an old combine seeking treasure. We balanced across the beams in a granary as daring tightrope artists. We lived in blanket tents and made cream peas for supper, using flour, water, and the shelled peas from the caragana hedge. On one adventure, Randie was escaping from the enemy by crawling through a culvert under our lane. She got stuck. Eventually, my mom figured out that she could just back out and be free. There were always kittens and calves, pigs and dogs, and once even a salamander to cuddle or dress up, if we could catch them. Randie had a very tall horse named Brownie. She was able to mount him by climbing up his front leg. She often rode with cousins Linda and Jean. Once they were crossing a creek when Randie's horse decided to lie down. Linda looked back to see Randie balancing precariously on his rumps with arms and legs held high to avoid the water. As we grew older and learned to ride our bikes, we were able to venture farther on our own. Sometimes we rode to town, and we rode our bikes to my aunt's house east of Parkland and stayed over. Our favorite spot to meet was at the pump table about halfway between our two houses. We had a secret two club with passwords. Randie had a playhouse that was the envy of all. It was a converted granary and had electricity. It had beds and a table and lights and even a hot plate. She had a wonderful set of glass dishes. Many friends fondly remember sleepovers and making tea and even meals. We once baked a Nanking cherry pie that looked and smelled delicious until you took a bite and discovered all the pits. Family was a very integral part of our childhood. There were birthday parties and holidays, picnics and reunions. There were often campfires and hootenannies, especially if our California cousins were visiting. Grandma Dwelly taught us to play jacks on her kitchen floor. We loved harvest time and taking meals to the field. Once, Linda and Randie camped out in a straw buncher. Randie went along on some cattle drives to the hills. Randie and her family loved to go camping in Banff National Park. Randie had to miss kindergarten in grade 1 because she had rheumatic fever. I remember visiting her as she sat in a big bed in their kitchen. She learned to read during this time and always loved books. When she did get to come to school, she rode on the bus with her Albert Lind cousins. The Linds nearly filled that whole bus. She went to activities at the Nanton United Church, and she took piano lessons. In grade 3, we took baton, tap, and Highland fling. Randie loved going to church camp in Waterton National Park and even returned as a counselor. Her nickname was Tinkerbell. In grade 5, she instigated a hold your breath contest for recesses. She filled the sink in the girls' bathroom and you dunked your head in for as long as you could. We bounced India rubber balls, skipped, and twirled hula hoops. We also played jacks, pickup sticks, and hopscotch. Randie had a magical pogo stick and was able to bounce around her basement like a kangaroo. In Calgary, we were allowed to shop on 8th Avenue between Eaton's and the Bay, all on our own. We could even have lunch at Woolworth's. Occasionally, we could travel a little farther to Evelyn DeMille's to purchase a new book. Such freedom. Randie's family built a new house in town in 1961. Before they moved in, we were sometimes allowed to camp in the new house by ourselves. Boy, did we feel grown up. As a teenager, Randie loved to dance, play her guitar, and sing. We sometimes played pool in her basement. This was a big deal for girls, as only boys were allowed in the pool hall. One Halloween, she was with a group of girls that sneaked into the old brick school to see if there really was a ghost. Tanning on the slanted roof of her house was a favorite pastime. She also played hooky in high school with a group. When they got caught, they had to strap each other. She belonged to a group that met on Tuesdays after school to share tea and fancy desserts. She liked to ride her bike to High River. Apparently, the boys up there were far superior to our locals. Randie and I were roommates in 1965 at our first year of university. In that tiny little room, we managed to fit in an electric tea kettle for tea, an electric frying pan for popcorn, and for a short time, a cat. All forbidden, of course. That summer, Randie's job was running a day camp in Bowness. She lived in her parents' tiny holiday trailer in Shoaldice Park and rode her bike to work. Are you noticing a camping biking pattern here? In 2002, after losing her mother, Randie felt she wanted more contact with her Dwelly family. She invited her girl cousins to tea at her house. We all came away with parking tickets and a desire to meet at least once a year. We became the Vestas, named after our grandmother. We traveled to Edmonton in the north and San Andreas, California in the south, and even as far east as Wardlow. We have crafted and toured and visited and even checked out the bar in Wayne, Alberta. Once we included our spouses, and we've included our daughters. Randie was able to fulfill one of her final wishes in the 2020 Vesta Fest. She was able to go horseback riding at Trudy and Josh's place west of Nanton. Her smile in the pictures shows her delight. Randie also organized another group of 6 girls who all went to school together in Nanton. We would get together for lunch a few times each year. This group is smaller now. Randie and I have shared many experiences and interests over 72 years. We tried to get together for lunch each year to celebrate our upcoming birthdays. I'm sure this was her year to buy. Thanks for the memories, Randie.
Randie and I attended the University of Calgary from 1965 to 68. And while Randie pursued a degree in education and I minored in art, we both focused our studies in English literature, which at that time was a rather restricted ramble from Chaucer to Shakespeare to Swift, through the Romantic and Victorian poets, inching into the 20th century with Eliot and Yeats, and coming to an abrupt halt at the modern novel, including our favorite, Virginia Woolf, but still featuring writers no longer alive. We undertook our own studies, of course, falling in love with Canadian contemporaries like Margaret Lawrence, Alice Munro, Leonard Cohen, and Michael Ondaatje. And of course, there was music, a soundtrack that included the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, Buffy St. Marie and Bob Dylan, the Jefferson Airplane and Jimi Hendrix. I'm reminded of something Randie wrote then, reflecting on university life. There is an undercurrent of excitement. Everything is new, anything might happen, and all life is before us. I might at any day or hour or minute turn a corner and find myself face to face with someone who will become my friend for life. When Randie and I revisited our old haunts in 2016 for the university's celebration of 50 years of autonomy, we joked that the university was old, but we were in fact older, so much older. And then, of course, Randie reminded me that I was even older than she was by 6 months. We shared those college days of learning and discovery with another special friend, Marg Sandin. Marg met Randie the first week at U of C, when Marg emerged rather tentatively from her dorm room, to be swept up with a big hello and an invitation to join Randie and her cousin Ina to take in some of the Frosh events. Many further adventures ensued. I also met Randie that first week when our phys ed class was offered the option to take a senior dance course instead of the usual sports curriculum. Randie and I were the first to enthusiastically raise a hand to volunteer, and we got to know each other while capering through folk and world dance to ballroom and contemporary styles. Over the university years, all three of us spent long hours talking and pondering the meaning of life, when we probably should have been studying. We sometimes read to each other from a wide range of books, including Bullfinch's Mythology, The Tibetan Book of the Dead, The Spice Box of Earth, and Wind in the Willows. Our time at college coincided with some global revolutionary movements and ideas that were exhilarating and challenging. Randie and I joined a peace group that protested the Vietnam War and rallied for student power, taking part in discussions that tried to make sense of the changing times. I discovered that Randie also loved playing guitar and singing, and we got together in a folk duo that sang and sometimes wrote our own songs of love and peace and justice, playing in small coffee houses in basements and even once at the university theater. One memorable summer of '67, we shared a house in Toronto with 12 other students, where we helped run a coffee house in the Trinity Square Annex and sang in a jug band, Randie on tambourine and yours truly on washboard. On graduation, Randie began her preschool teaching career, while Marg worked in reading support in the schools. Both also began raising kids. I set off on my own career as a visual artist while working in artist-run galleries. Randie was often the catalyst for keeping friendship alive, with 2 or 3 of us getting together for walks or dinners, or with books, guitars, and songs, sharing tea or wine. We wrote letters to each other even when in the same city, and kept journals we sometimes shared. We participated in women's consciousness-raising groups typical of that era. In a similar spirit, Randie and Marg started a weekly women's group for mutual support called Basic Trust, including friends Donna Lougheed and Penny Davies. To keep up college contacts, Randie shared a house with grads and pals for a while, the 15th Avenue Co-op House, which was the site of many shared good times and gatherings with each other and with friends beyond our circle. Randie was the one who suggested that she and I join up with the Raging Grannies, where we could playfully combine songwriting, protest, and singing. And that inspired me to get involved with the Unitarians. She also suggested I join her in working as a tutor at Bow Valley College, where we once again could struggle with the writing of essays and the anxiety of exams, but from a comfortable distance. Randie was always ready for outings with other tutors, which evolved into regular meetups for drinks, snacks, conversation, and laughter. Marg and Randie, too, ensured that their friendship carried on through changes in their lives. Most recently, they enjoyed annual bike and camping trips with spouses Jeff and Mitch through the American Southwest. Sifting through pictures of Randie, my own and those taken by Jeff and others, to prepare the photos for this memorial, has made me appreciate once again the breadth of Randie's interests, the varied activities of her life, and her strong network of family and friends. It was a joy and a blessing to know her. I hope you'll enjoy listening to this song from our university days, one of the favorites that Randie and I loved to sing, Bob Dylan's Lay Down Your Weary Tune, sung by Trio, Brandis, Ev, and Leslie. If you know the song, feel free to strum, hum, or sing along.
Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold.
struck by the sounds before the sun. I knew the night had come, the morning breeze like a bugle blew against the drums of dawn. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold down. The ocean wild like an organ played, the seaweed wove in strands, the crashing waves like cymbals clashed against the rocks and sands. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold down. The last of leaves fell from the trees and clung to a new love's breast. The branches bend like a banjo mourned to the winds that listen the best. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold down.
Oh, that was just lovely, Triu. Thank you so much. It has become evident, perhaps, or those of you and all of us knew Randie, how important family was to her. Family of blood and chosen family of heart as well. She has 2 biological sons. Matthew Freeman arrived in 1973 when she and her then husband Ivan Freeman were part of the Simon Fraser University community in Burnaby, BC. In 1980, son Kai was born, and his father, Nick Rasmussen, also had another son, Damien, from a previous relationship, and the 3 boys spent time together. Matt blessed Randie with 3 grandchildren, Maya, Oscar, and Summer. Let us now hear from the Freeman family, first granddaughter Maya, daughter-in-law May, then Matt speaking on behalf of his brother Kai as well, and then Oscar and Summer with a song that Randie requested. Let us wheel on down the road with the Freeman family.
Hello, I'm going to be reading a poem requested by my grandmother. It's called The New Song by W.S. Merwin, and it is one of the 100 she memorized over the past 10 years. For some time I thought there was time, and that there would always be time, for what I had a mind to do and what I could imagine, going back to and finding it, as I had found it the first time. But by this time I do not know what I thought when I thought back then. There is no time, yet it grows less. There is a sound of rain at night, arriving unknown in the leaves, once without, before or after. Then I hear the thrush waking at daybreak, singing the new song. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am May and I'm sending a short tribute to Randie from South Korea. Of course, we wish we could be there with you in Calgary to celebrate Randie's life with you and all the wonderful inspiration she has been to all of us. Of course, her love will remain in our hearts and the many, many beautiful memories that we have created as a family together. Randie was much more than a mother-in-law to me. I've known her for over 30 years and she has always been there for me along the way. A huge inspiration as a woman, as a friend, a mother, and a grandmother to our children. She's been there for each of our children's births, and of course traveling across the world to spend time with us. I've chosen this poem to recite to you. As you know, Randie had a huge love for literature, a love for nature, a love for children, and play, especially imaginative play. I chose this poem because Randie read many books to our children, and one of them being Winnie the Pooh. So this poem is by A. Milne, and it's titled Twinkle Toes. When the sun shines through the leaves of the apple tree, when the sun makes shadows of the leaves of the apple tree, then I pass on the grass from one leaf to another, from one leaf to its brother. Tiptoe, tiptoe, here I go. Thank you.
I really struggled to write this. And only by abandoning any idea of saying anything that could be seen as conclusive or comprehensive was I able to move forward with it. I feel my mom's love still daily, and I talk out loud to her when I'm struggling with something. I remember her joy, her laughter, her love, and her care. I remember her always being available to listen. I remember her words of wisdom and all the wonderful meals she made and all the trips that she took me on. She introduced me to loving travel and being open to exploring other cultures, both abroad and at home in our Canadian mosaic. She was a kind, good, open-minded woman. And then the next chapter, as a grandma to May and I's 3 kids, I remember her relishing the opportunities to play necklace store, the marble game, and of course, the never-ending soap opera of the relationships between the different stuffed animals. Who is Brown Bear married to now? What does Rosie think about it? I respected her honesty and pragmatism, and it has definitely influenced how I relate to others and live my life. We would sometimes discuss the evolution of human consciousness and emotional intelligence over the generations, like how each generation seemed to be changing to become more liberated and emotionally intelligent. She believed we are currently living in a golden age. She was always open about discussing death, even when I was a child, and would occasionally share that she was glad that death was part of life, that our lives have endings. Since death is a part of life, at this celebration of life, I would also like to celebrate her death. I am grateful that she was able to go out as she wished. She often spoke of how she feared losing her mental capacities or to live many years inactive in an assisted living facility. So of course, while I mourn her, and I mourn her absence, I am grateful she was able to have a relatively quick, merciful death, with so much time to say goodbye and to get her affairs in order. I have written her a poem inspired by a Batman story, penned by Neil Gaiman, called Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. In that book, Batman is stuck in a near-death experience, not realizing that he is dying, and then the spirit of his mother comes to him to help him transition out of this limbo. In order to help him move on, Batman's mom modifies the classic Goodnight Moon book for him. This one is for you, Mom. Goodnight, Nanton. Goodnight, mountains. Goodnight, Jeff. Goodnight, Matthew and Kai. Goodnight, bikes. Goodnight, hikes. Goodnight, cats. Goodnight, flats. Goodnight, Malin, Maya, Summer, and Oscar. Goodnight, pies. Goodnight, wowsies. Goodnight, cousins. Goodnight, brown bear. Goodnight, garden. Goodnight to all of you. Goodnight, stars in the bright big sky. Goodnight, goodbye, goodnight. I would like to end with a quote from Ram Dass, originally known as Richard Alpert. Death is like taking off a tight shoe. I feel this is fitting for her, since she always held comfort in such high regard. I remember whenever we came back home from somewhere, that she would encourage me to take off my socks and let my feet breathe. So long, and thanks for all the love, laughter, and joy.
Baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby shark. Mommy shark, do-do-do-do-do, mommy shark, do-do-do-do-do, mommy shark, do-do-do-do-do, mommy shark. Daddy shark, do-do-do-do-do, daddy shark, do-do-do-do-do, daddy shark, do-do-do-do-do, daddy shark. Grandma shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandma shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandma shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandma shark. Grandpa shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandpa shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandpa shark, do-do-do-do-do, grandpa shark.
Yep, perhaps surprising, the Baby Shark song was also on Randie's list of suggested tunes for this occasion. Jeff tells the story of a road trip he and Randie took with her son Matt, his wife May, and the grandkids Maya, Summer, and Oscar. Randie loved making up stories with the grandkids and singing songs she knew from her years in teaching preschool. All the way home in the back seat, that chorus song rang out. I remember my grandchildren doing the same thing. Randie's love of singing, making up stories, and learning was also her life's work with both children and adults. And so let us now hear from Heidi Dick about Randie's time with Campus Preschool, and then from Denise Thuenson for reflections about Bow Valley College days. Heidi?
Randie spent most of her professional life, 28 years, teaching at Campus Preschool. She was a truly gifted preschool teacher. There are hundreds of families who had the gift of experiencing her unique approach to preschoolers. Randie held out a hand for children as they made their first steps out of their family into a bigger community. She felt honored to be the one to help them build bridges from the known world of their family to the bigger world of school. I am blessed to be among them, as my younger daughter was in her class for 2 years. As her preschool teacher, Randie became part of our family, and she and Caitlin for years had a game of who was going to have the most fun. I had the special opportunity to teach with Randie for 17 years, and we became close friends, sharing and learning together. We shared ideas, concerns, adventures, and fun. Randie realized that spending time creating a wholesome environment for young children to grow and develop in is also creating a good environment to work in as an adult. She encouraged personal growth and reflection. We often discussed ideas after a conference. We wrote personal plans for improvement in our teaching practices. And we, like the children, learned through play. Being with Randie, working or playing, always involved reflective discussion. By sharing her thoughts, Randie encouraged me to consider the bigger picture and grow in the process. Randie was able to see the world through the eyes of a child. She could see the magic a child sees the first time they find a ladybug in the leaves or see a candle being snuffed out. It is a gift that Randie took to her own life. She could see the magic in little things. Randie was the rare adult who could enter a fantasy world of a child without directing it. By respecting, accepting, and playing in it, she would enable a child to become more than he or she was. These skills are what made Randie a special preschool teacher. She knew each child. She also realized that we all need to be special, to be a hero in someone's eyes. She would create stories with the children of adventures and heroic deeds. She would make the child who was having a hard time socially in the class the hero of the adventure stories for a while. And soon the other children and that child himself saw him as a hero too. For many years, a favorite school field trip was to go on a city bus to Randie's house. The children saw to their amazement that she had a bed and a teddy bear and a kitchen and a bathroom just like they did. They discovered that their teacher did not live at school. Campus Preschool was a community of parents, teachers, and children, all dedicated to the school's well-being. This was very important to Randie as it fit with her value system. We got to know parents as well as children and created meaningful relationships and lasting friendships. Randie once recognized a metaphor of her life with young children as the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River. She was formed and shaped by the hundreds and hundreds of children that passed through her hands and heart. She felt, quote, very fortunate to have passed so much of my life among the very young, with their energy, enthusiasm, sense of wonder, and emotional honesty. When Randie retired from teaching preschool, there was one thing that she knew she would not miss. That was the daily experience in winter of helping 16 3-year-olds put on snowsuits, mittens, and boots. My life and teaching were shaped by working and playing with Randie. I am thankful for that. I am reminded of Randie's life and work by the words in a Mary Oliver poem, Sometimes, not one that Randie memorized. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. I miss you, Randie.
After her retirement from preschool, Randie smoothly transitioned into sharing her literary interest by becoming a tutor for adult learners at Bow Valley College. No need to put on snowsuits for this group. She shared her love for English literature not only with us, but with reluctant adult readers. She helped these learners transform into enjoying and even laughing while reading. Yes, Randie could make Shakespeare's and other authors' stories interesting, while initially learners were hesitant or avoided reading altogether. She had learners choose pieces of writing that spoke to them and took her preschool values and beliefs and modeled that reading and writing could be like playing with words, as she helped bring the enjoyment and curiosity back into their lives. Randie, I am sure your poetry project was often on your mind while you were tutoring these adult learners. They were fortunate, like your preschoolers, to have you as their tutor by providing them with such a positive reading and writing experience.
Well, Randie's wheeling on down the road often happened with a very special group of women, the Wowsies. and I will let them introduce themselves. The Wowsies.
We'll start with a verse of a poem that Randie wrote for us in 2006. We Wowsies are women, so wild and so wise, and we're at our best when we're well exercised. We're astoundingly clever, and never say never. It's Wowsies forever, and long may we ride.
Mark? Esther, perhaps you can tell us a bit about the Wowsies.
We're the Wowsies, wild, wise women on wheels. Randie and Heidi and Denise and Marg and myself, Esther. The five of us formed a camaraderie that has brought us many trips, conversations, discussions, and 25 years of friendship. We cycled, hiked, and camped for over 20 years, every summer as soon as school was out. During the winter months, we cross-country skied together and often stayed overnight at one of the hostels. During these winter trips, Randie would always ask the question, where shall we go next summer? Even better, she always had great ideas and amazing plans for different places to go. Often it was some place that she had seen before and wanted to share it with us. And other times it was some place new for all of us.
So Esther and Denise, Mark and I have already talked about our personal connections with Randie, with the university and with campus preschool. But how did you get to know Randie?
Well, Randie and I met on Bridgewater Drive in 1981, where we were neighbors for almost 10 years. I had moved there from Toronto, and Randie saw me cycling one day, and I had one kid in the front and one kid in the back, and she came and talked with me. Little did I know then that she would become my best neighbor ever, and a great friend and my boy's unforgettable preschool teacher. Kai and my sons were big friends and played and got into trouble together whenever they could, while Matt was the kids' best babysitter ever for many years. After he got busy with school and adventures, no babysitter was ever good enough. During the summer months, we had many camping adventures. Randie would drive the blue van and I would pull, and the blue van would pull my trailer. And as you can imagine, all the kids thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Esther, do you remember the connection?
I do. My connection started with Randie because of our love of biking. She was already a member of the Elbow Valley Cycling Club when I joined. And soon we were biking together every weekend, sometimes twice on a weekend. She even taught me how to draft off the stronger cyclists. Eventually we were ready for the big adventure, the Golden Triangle, which we did 3 or 4 times. And we'd fantasize while we were doing it that we would probably still be doing this when we were 90 years old. What were some of the trip highlights for us all?
Well, one of the highlights I remember was on our Jasper to Banff bike and hike trip. I remember Randie going down Sonrata Pass at 80 kilometers an hour, while my brakes were burning rubber at 40 kilometers an hour. No fear, just heading down the pass as if she was cycling down the road. She called it exhilarating.
One trip stands out for me, although I love them all. This one was one of our trips to Holland. Mitch and I met up with Randie and Jeff, and with Denise, Heidi, and Esther at Charles de Gaulle Airport near Paris. Our group deplaned with the bikes. We then began the mad rush to assemble our bikes and then hurry to make a train connection to Holland. My recollection is that we made that train just barely in time. On this trip, we stayed with Denise's many siblings as our kind hosts. It was a fabulous trip to the Netherlands. I do not think that these trips would have taken place without Randie's spirit. We miss her so much.
We always celebrated birthdays together, and I was the lucky one that had my birthday in July because I got to celebrate in a different place every summer. When I turned 64, a poem was written by the Wowsies and ended with, "Will you still need us? Will you still feed us when you're 64? Answer's yes.
I remember a trip, we were on our way to Lundbrook Falls, and it was an extremely hot day. We were hunting for any shade along the road, and it was almost non-existent. We finally rode into the campground, went directly to the water pump, and we each stuck our heads under the pump while the others poured freezing cold water on us.
Why do you think we were able to be such a strong group of friends together for so many years?
Every year we made a huge effort to try to cycle for a week, usually the first week in July. And it was hard, sometimes hard to get it all together. We have a lot of schedules to work around. But every year we did something. Cornwall, France, the Netherlands, Kananaskis, Thompson Highway, Silver Triangle, New Denver, Nelson, Caslow, Kettle Valley Railroad, and Vancouver Island.
And another thing was the adventurous traveling component that we all relished. We loved adventures, and we were active and interested in going to places we could explore while biking, hiking, and camping. As you know from the introduction by Esther, you can guess who started with all this and who kept us going as a group.
Yes, Randie gathered us as a group that first time for the amazing bike trip. But one thing that kept us together is that she did not try to be in control. Randie was able to step back and let us take ownership of the group. We decided together that we wanted to do it again the next summer, and we each took responsibility for making it happen. Randie also challenged us with adventures, which we decided allowed growth to happen. So we grew individually, and by sharing that as a group, we became stronger.
The intense discussions we had were interested and connected us. We were all at an age where there was a lot going on in our lives. Kids' growing pains, spouse challenges, and career decisions. Randie said it was because we were all accepting and respecting each other differences that we bonded so well. It was the right balance. We were able to relate to each other and share each other's concerns. We all look forward to getting out, just the 5 of us, for our special time together, and we're committed to making it happen.
Anything else you would like to add, Denise?
Yes. Randie, we will promise to keep the wheels rolling, but it won't be easy without you. You know we will miss you. Your enthusiasm, your poems and songs on our rides. But just know that without your influence, we would have never had these adventures. You brought us together and started us on a path to this friendship. Thank you for being an example of how we want to live our lives. You've made us stronger in many ways, and the world a better place. And we will always love you for that.
How about one last verse together of Randie's Wowsy poem? Bikes,
Bikes, glorious bikes, take us as far and as fast as we like. Whenever we travel, our problems unravel. Oh, nothing can rival our glorious bikes.
Isn't that delightful? Such friendship, such strength. And Randie's love of literature has been mentioned. It was alluded to that she, over 10 years, memorized 100 poems. That's incredible. It was her style to create community around her passions, if it wasn't there already, as the Wowsies have let you know. And another community that she co-created was the Calgary branch of the Jane Austen Society of North America. Deidre Harris presented a tribute to Randie at the September meeting of that group and has graciously offered it for us this evening. Deidre.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Harris, and I met Randie through the Calgary chapter of the Jane Austen Society of North America. I've known many inspiring women during my life, women who are intelligent and creative, informed and inquisitive, women who embrace life and the people around them, and who accept the challenges that they are given with strength and composure. Randie Lind was all of the above, but something more. Randie was unique. I have in front of me a coiled bond notebook, 100 poems I have known, a personal anthology, collected and memorized by Randie Lind, 2010 to 2019. Starting in 2010, Randie not only memorized a new poem each month, but kept in her memory the poems she had already learned. Few of us would even conceive of such a project, let alone have the discipline to complete it. However, when Randie committed to something, she was all in. In many ways, the poetry project speaks to the person Randie was. The love of literature, one of Randie's defining characteristics, shines throughout the project. There are ballads, odes and sonnets, alongside haiku, villanelle, songs, and blank verse. Poets range from well-known, Shakespeare and Wordsworth, to lesser-known, A.E. Housman and Al Purdy. From romantic and Victorian to postmodern and metaphysical, Randie embraced all styles, genres, and time periods. It was that love of literature that inspired Randie to co-found our Calgary Jasna region alongside with Elizabeth Marshall, and to be a valued member ever since. Her knowledge of Jane Austen was incredible and would have given some Jane Austen scholars a run for their money. You were always relieved to have Randie on your team if there was a quiz. I mentioned before that when Randie committed to something, she was all in, and this included Jasna Calgary. When we needed a dance group for a Jasna tea, Randie immediately signed up to become a founding member of Sprig Muslim. I will always remember her in her jean overalls and sandals, laughing and shaking her head when we messed up our steps and ended up in a complete muddle. Many of the poems that Randie chose to memorize focused on the natural world, which shows the huge role that nature played in her life. Randie grew up in the country, surrounded, as she said, by cousins and animals and freedom to roam. It led to a lifelong love of camping and hiking and cycling. Randie was one of the few people I know where cycling wasn't just something she did now and then, but an integral part of her daily life. You rarely saw Randie without her bike. In this last year, some of the bucket items on Randie's list were horseback riding and camping, both of which were fulfilled. After Randie had collected the 100 poems, she regrouped and reread them, looking for connections and common themes. She was constantly striving to better understand the characteristics of the world around her and was always open to new learning. She said that it was this deeper interaction with the poems that led her to see the spiritual dimension of the project. And the discipline of repetition and ritual became a spiritual practice. This supported and sustained her during her battle with cancer. Randie not only embraced all types of literature, she embraced everyone around her. She had a keen interest in your life, thoughts, and opinions, and you immediately found accepted in her presence. This acceptance is perhaps the greatest gift she gave us. To me, the most inspiring aspect of Randie is the grace with which she faced her illness. She was always calm, positive, and logical, thinking more of others than of herself. She's one of the very few people who were able to leave the hospice on 2 feet, as she said. She'd spent 3 precious months at home with Jeff, visiting friends and family and checking items off her bucket list. This is a testament to the exceptional person she was. I feel very privileged to have been one of the friends who got to spend time with her this summer. One of the poems included in her poetry project is a quote from Cicero in 43 BCE. when he was 65 years old. As I approach death, I feel like a man nearing a harbor after a long voyage. I seem to be catching sight of land. I like the idea that Randie, after a varied and interesting and productive voyage, has landed at the harbor. She's home.
Thank you for the sharing. This next song, Simple Gifts, is one of Randie's favorites from the Unitarian Universalist songbook. It also happens to be the song that brought Jeff and Randie together. They were both members of the Elbow Valley Cycle Club and each signed up for a cross-country ski trip into Elizabeth Parker Hut in Yoho National Park. As Randie followed Jeff along the trail, she began humming the tune to Simple Gifts. Jeff turned around, saying, "I know that song," and began to hum along. That evening, in the cozy hut, was the first time they sat down and talked together. Picturing them thus, I invite you to sing or hum along to Simple Gifts.
A gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
That cross-country ski trip was in January of 1996, almost 25 years ago. Randie and Jeff have shared so many adventures, living out their love of traveling and cycling and camping. Randie's last camping trip was at the end of July this year. Such a blessing and a gift for both of them. And now let's hear from Jeff about their long-distance ride together.
Good evening, friends and family on this continent, and good morning to our Freeman 5 family in South Korea. Previous presenters have spoken from their hearts about the impact Randie has had on their lives. I'd like to use my few minutes now to enable Randie to speak to us through her journal. Randie has journaled forever, long before we met. Journal entries have been meditative and very private affairs, even to the point of Sandra asked to burn old journals just a few months ago. One entry worth sharing is appropriate because the event was previously described by Denise to Randie's Caring Bridge website readers. The entry recounts the start of her shared health journey. It's the timestamp of Randie's transition from an extreme fitness level with her joie de vivre to an eventual ultimate health decline just 4 days short of a full year. Some quick background. The first occurrence of extreme abdominal pain set Randie to Foothills Hospital for 16 nights in late January and early February. Resolved but weakened. Home for a month. Randie then entered Dulcina Hospice on March 2nd when a second round of extreme abdominal pain struck. This journal entry is from May 12th, 2020. It is entitled From Here to There. Randie is beginning to document the occurrences that led her to, at this point, 10 weeks of an eventual 3-month guest residency at Dulcina Hospice with a surprise discharge on May 28th. Randie writes, "It was Wednesday, September 4th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. I'm on my way to Sir Winston Churchill Pool and Fitness Center via bicycle for yoga and swimming. Happy to be out on the beautiful, warm, sunny day, feeling strong after a mid-August camping trip with Denise and Jeff to Waterfowl Lakes with our tiny trailers. It was a good camping break. Jeff and I stayed the first night at Two Jack Main Campground. to be well positioned for early access to the first come, first served campsites at Waterfowl, where Denise joined us later that morning. During our 2 days with Denise, we canoed on the lower lake, walked up Parker Ridge, and bicycled to the crossing. Denise went home on the third day. I persuaded Jeff into an adventure ride with rain and pellets and steep climb to Bow Summit, 16.5 kilometer ride each way with very heavy rain near the top. We put on our rain gear to tear back downhill, fast, nearly hypothermic, hard to see potholes because of the rain and traffic splash. Anyway, for me, it was a real high, an adventure adrenaline rush, and confirmed my strength and health and the thrill of being out. Exciting. We warmed up with hot soup back at the trailer, napped with hot water bottles at our feet. Then 2 weeks later, September 4th, I am hit by a car while bicycling to the fitness center with intent to maintain my health. I can still feel the impact as my head hit the curb and saw my left index finger all filthy and lucky all backwards, cut above my right eye, left knee and right hand feels weird as well. Jeff and an ambulance were called to the scene and was taken to Foothills Hospital's emergency care for the rest of the day, less than 500 meters away from the collision site and a bit closer to home. Esther came by as well. Lots of patching up, whole body CT scan, which included checking for a possible head injury, a standard procedure for a tumble from a bicycle. Left pointer finger broken and bone broken in the right hand, both hands pretty useless when bandaged up. The doctor reported the CT scan showed no other injuries from the collision, but did show a tumor outside the bladder. Shock. Biopsy a few days later showed it was cancerous and it spread to the lymphatic system, inoperable and incurable. It's the end of the excerpt from Randie's journal. Randie and I had been living together longer than any other relationships we've ever had, including our own parents or children. A long distance ride is a great metaphor for 24 and a half years together. In that time, my house was transformed into our home. It became a place where Matt and May's emerging family and all 8 of us, including Randie's younger son, Kai, could gather, laugh, frolic in the living room, build Lego models without fear of their getting crushed underfoot, enjoy the backyard, try out descending a lofty 30-centimeter high hill on bicycles, play mock soccer, taste vine-picked tomatoes, build a quinchee, and jump into the snow. We've seen our 3 grandchildren born practically next door and have been fortunate to spend time with them as they continue to mature and ride their own bikes. Ours was like any other mutual, deeply caring and respectful relationship. We always looked out for each other while allowing the freedom to be apart at times for spiritual growth. We were alike in many ways, but also very different. Maybe that was the strength of our relationship. Together we had deeply caring friends, many of whom were common to us, shared our interest in social justice issues, thrift store sprees, watching British murder mysteries, hiking, backpacking, cross-country skiing, and a bit of canoeing, self-supported bicycle trip planning, and cycle touring locally and overseas, traveling to visit with family in Abbotsford, Ithaca, New York, South Carolina, China, South Korea, house sitting in Victoria, and simply being together anywhere. The other P in my pod has left me. I have been truly privileged and humbled to have been part of Randie's life. I'll continue honoring Randie's life through bonding with all common friends and family. We really did have the perfect life together. Randie and I did discuss the future. Randie speaking, remember the great times we've had together, and agreed there is always room in our hearts for more love. Thank goodness I have enough photos to supplement my memories. Thank you to all for your support, Alberta Health Services, and particularly palliative home care and hospice staff amongst these challenging pandemic times. Our many friends and family members, to all, thank you.
Well, we have heard many voices about the deep and long relationships in Randie's life. And it has been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I now invite you to a photo montage of Randie's life. Deep gratitude to Sandra Vida for selecting the photos and Ev Dewar for the sound syncing of the PowerPoint. The soundtrack you will hear is first Feel My Thirst by Bill Staines, that speaks to the relationship that Randie and Jeff had together. And then Turn, Turn, Turn by Pete Seeger, a favorite of Randie's and so appropriate for this celebration. I invite you now to enjoy Scenes Along the Journey.
Lord, fill my thirst for a love that grows sweeter with time. Open my heart to the light in her eyes as they shine. Give me to her as a true gift of her love defined, and make us a life that will ripen like fruit on the vine. Oh Lord, fill my days with the freedom to be what I feel and to say what I may, just as long as what I say is real. Give me the strength to be true to my own ideals and the wisdom to wait till I know what each moment reveals. Oh Lord, fill my purse with only the coins that I need. Teach me to give and never to suffer from greed, for as I let it go, it flows like a log jam that's freed, like a farmer who sows has an endless supply of new seed. Lord, fill my life with the peace that I know why I'm here. Keep my mind free from distractions of worry and fear. Life is so easy to see when I keep my head clear. Lord, give me one chance and I'll show that I'm deeply sincere. Lord, fill my thirst for a love that grows sweeter with time. Open my heart to the light in her eyes as they shine. Give me to her as a true gift of her love defined, and make us a life that will ripen like fruit on the vine. And make us a life that will ripen like fruit on the vine. And make us a life that will ripen like fruit on the vine.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything, turn, turn. season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time of love, a time of hate, a time of peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
Wasn't that lovely? They went a little bit too fast. I love the image of cycling into the sunset as the closing for this cycling tour of Randie's life and loves. This tiny flame was lit in honor of Randie's life and to light her on her way. As the flame is extinguished, it marks the closing of the formal part of our gathering. The possibility of the flame is held in the wax and the wick, rekindled by a spark. Randie remains ever present within our hearts, sparked by loving memories. I would now ask Jeff to extinguish the chalice. It is almost done. Our celebration of a life which touched all of us in some way. This loving farewell to Randie. In our continued remembrance of her, let it be her passion for cycling and literature, her commitment to community, building it and sustaining it, her kindness and her good humor, her love of the garden and growing, and her huge loving heart that endures. A few closing words from Randie's 100 Poems I Have Known. This is the last verse of William Wordsworth's Intimations of Immortality. What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind. Randie's memory will always remain behind in the people who loved her. May we all find strength in that. We are profoundly glad that Randie lived. We are glad we saw her face and felt the glow of her friendship and love. Carrying her thus in our hearts, let us go now from this space in comfort and in peace, assured that even in this time of loss and sorrow, life remains precious and good. May we also on this day rekindle in our hearts an appreciation for the gifts of life and other persons. Let us honor Randie's life by living ourselves more lovingly in the days ahead. So as you return to the routines of your lives, go in great peace, dear friends, and may an abiding peace go with you. Before the postlude, our closing music, I want to encourage you to stay on the call, as you will be invited into small groups of about 6 or 8 people. This is our virtual reception. These will be random groups, so you may be with people you don't know. Yet all of us knew Randie. Introduce yourselves and continue to share your Randie memories. In a few days, there will be a recording of the service for those unable to be here or wanting to watch it again. I think particularly the photo montage. May all beings be well as we enjoy the postlude selected by Jeff, with the memory of how after touring a Buddhist monastery in Beijing, he and Randie heard what turned out to be a very popular Buddhist chant playing at a storefront as they walked by. Finding it very peaceful and serene, they purchased the CD. And now Jeff asked that it be offered to you. Om Mani Padme Hum. Be well, dear ones, as we rest in this moment.
六字真言颂，护主三宝。
全心皈依护主三宝，真心怜悯慈母众生。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。佛为道师，法为正道，僧为善侣，同为救主。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。登山阶梯，过河穿舟，去与会等闲爱谈吐。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。口诵真言，心中祈祷，地狱烈火从此熄灭。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。常诵六字，胸中发愿，冷雨冰雪，笑容变暖。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。诵持六字，威力无比，十八地狱变成乐土。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。世间无事，因缘难了，生死轮回，行善为要。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。万物无常，善恶交替，向善精进，矢志不渝。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。暇满人生，难得之宝，虚度此生，实为可惜。Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum。贪
she